expressed it to me several times, particularly when I first became White House correspondent. Lyndon Johnson was president. And one day, he did call me into the office and say, "What the hell's wrong with you, boy? I mean, you're a Texan.
Yeah.
We have to stick together."
He was a force of nature, a Texas titan of a man overflowing with ambition, insecurity, raw political genius, and vulgar charm. He was Lyndon Baines Johnson, the master of the Senate, a man who understood the levers of power better than almost anyone in American history. And on a dark day in November of 1963, he became the accidental king, inheriting a nation shattered by grief and thrust into the presidency by an assassin's bullet. His presidency was a whirlwind of contradictions. At home, he waged an unprecedented war on poverty and injustice, using his legendary Johnson treatment, a physically intimidating in-your-face style of persuasion, to pass the most monumental civil rights legislation since Abraham Lincoln. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, Medicare-Medicaid. He built what he called the Great Society. But halfway across the world, he escalated a different kind of war. The conflict in Vietnam, a quagmire that would consume his presidency, divide the nation, and ultimately drive him from office, a broken and reviled man. He was a man of immense accomplishments and tragic flaws. But while he wrestled with the fate of the world, his two daughters, young women in their late teens and early 20s, were forced to live out their own lives, their romances, their rebellions, their weddings, on the brightest, most unforgiving stage on earth, the White House. They held fairy tale weddings while protesters chanted anti-war slogans outside the gates. They were the first daughters of the turbulent 1960s. What is the untold story of the Johnson girls? In this video, we will tell the complete, inside the White House, and deeply personal stories of Lynda Bird and Luci Baines, the two daughters of the brilliant, flawed, and monumental 36th President of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson. They came of age in the most public residence on earth during one of America's most turbulent decades, navigating romance, rebellion, and marriage, all under the intense, relentless gaze of a nation. We will explore the life of Lynda Bird Johnson Robb, the serious and dutiful elder daughter, who dated a movie star, married a Marine captain destined for Vietnam, and eventually became a powerful political wife and a fierce advocate in her own right. And we will delve into the story of Luci Baines Johnson, the vivacious and rebellious younger daughter, whose dramatic conversion to Catholicism and whirlwind White House wedding captivated a nation, and who later emerged as a savvy and powerful businesswoman, taking control of the family's vast financial empire. To bring you this epic political and family saga, we have gone deep into the archives of the LBJ Presidential Library, studied the personal and remarkably candid diaries of their mother, Lady Bird Johnson, and chronicled the decades of public life of two women who grew up at the very center of American power during the chaotic and transformative 1960s. This is the story of the family that lived through the Great Society and the Vietnam War from the inside. Number 2. Lynda Bird Johnson Robb, the first daughter of duty. As the eldest, she was the serious, dutiful daughter, a front-row witness to history as her father assumed the presidency in a moment of profound national trauma. She was the one who understood the weight of the moment, the gravity of their new reality. But the life of Lynda Bird Johnson Robb would also be a story of forging her own identity, navigating a high-profile Hollywood romance, marrying a soldier destined for war in a poignant White House ceremony, and ultimately becoming a powerful political force in her own right. Born in 1944, Lynda Bird Johnson was the first child of a man whose political ambition was already a force of nature. She grew up not in the quiet countryside of Texas, but in the political crucible of Washington, D.C. The daughter of a powerful congressman, then a formidable senator, and then the Vice President of the United States. Her childhood was a series of campaigns, political events, and constant lessons in the demanding, often unforgiving code of public life. She was by nature more serious and reserved than her younger sister. a personality well suited to the formal environment she was raised in. When her father became president after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, 20-year-old Lynda Bird stepped into the role of first daughter with a sense of solemn duty and historical awareness. She was a student at George Washington University, and she was intelligent, serious, and deeply aware of the tragic circumstances that had brought her family to the White House. Almost immediately, the nation became fascinated by her. Her every move, her every date was chronicled by the press. Her romantic life became a subject of intense media speculation, particularly her high-profile and very public relationship with the handsome movie star George Hamilton. Hamilton, with his perpetual tan and suave demeanor, was a glamorous figure. Their dates were headline news, providing a welcome distraction for a nation grappling with the escalating war in Vietnam and growing social unrest. They traveled the world together, always trailed by a legion of reporters and photographers. But her heart ultimately led her to a different kind of man. A man who better reflected the serious service-oriented world she came from. She fell in love with Charles "Chuck" Robb, a decorated and highly respected Marine Corps captain. Their relationship was a powerful symbol of the times. As their romance blossomed, Chuck received his orders he was being deployed to command a rifle company in Vietnam, the very war that was consuming her father's presidency and tearing the country apart. They became engaged just before he left for combat. On December 9, 1967, while Captain Robb was briefly home on leave from the war, he and Lynda Bird were married in a magnificent and deeply poignant ceremony in the East Room of the White House. The wedding of a first daughter to a Marine captain who was actively serving on the front lines of an unpopular war was a powerful and politically potent national event. It was a fairy tale moment, underscored by the grim reality of the nightly news. After her father left office in 1969, Lynda Bird's life in the public eye was far from over. She embraced the role of a political wife as her husband Chuck Robb launched his own successful career following a path that was in many ways a mirror of her father's. He was elected governor of Virginia and later served 2 terms as a U.S. Senator from Virginia. As the First Lady of Virginia and later as a senator's wife, Lynda Bird became a powerful advocate in her own right. President Johnson had appointed her to the President's Advisory Committee for Women, and she continued to be a passionate voice for women's rights. But her most enduring cause was children's literacy, a passion she shared with her mother. For many years, she served as the chairman of the board of Reading is Fundamental, the nation's largest children's literacy organization. In her later years, she has remained a devoted guardian of her parents' legacy, serving on the board of the LBJ Foundation and actively participating in events and symposiums at the LBJ Presidential Library. Her life has been a journey of service, first as a daughter of a president, then as the wife of a governor and senator, and finally as a respected and effective advocate for the causes she believes, in a true heir to her father's Great Society ideals. While Lynda Bird's path was one of serious, steady, and predictable duty, her younger sister's journey would be marked by a more rebellious, vivacious, and dramatic spirit. Her story included a religious conversion that tested the family's unity and a whirlwind romance that culminated in a wedding that became a national spectacle. Number 1. Luci Baines Johnson, the Firefly and the businesswoman. She was the bubbly, vivacious younger daughter, the Firefly of the family, who brought a spark of youthful unpredictability to the formal, somber halls of the Johnson White House. But beneath the bright, infectious smile was a fiercely independent and rebellious spirit who would defy her family's faith, marry in a spectacular ceremony that captivated a nation, and later emerge as a savvy and powerful businesswoman, taking firm control of the Johnson family's vast financial empire. This is the story of Luci Baines Johnson. Born in 1947, Luci Baines Johnson was the energetic and outgoing counterpoint to her more reserved older sister. She was just 16 years old when her father became president, and she spent her entire teenage years in the full intense and often suffocating glare of the White House spotlight. She famously changed the spelling of her first name from Luci to Lucy, as a small but public act of teenage rebellion against her famous lineage. But her biggest act of youthful defiance came in matters of faith and love. At the age of 18, she announced her decision to convert to Roman Catholicism, a significant step away from her family's deeply rooted Episcopalian faith. The decision caused some friction in the very public First family. Soon after, she fell into a whirlwind romance with a young man named Patrick Nugent. They were quickly engaged. On August 6, 1966, a 19-year-old Luci Baines Johnson had one of the most spectacular and widely covered weddings in American history. Watched on television by an audience of 55 million people, her marriage to Pat Nugent at the magnificent Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., was a true fairy tale event. The reception at the White House was a lavish affair, a moment of national celebration and escapism in the midst of the deeply divisive and turbulent summer of 1966. Her life after the White House, however, was not a fairy tale. Her marriage to Nugent, with whom she had 4 children, ended in divorce after 13 years. But Luci, having inherited her mother's sharp business sense and her father's formidable will, proved to be far more than just a former first daughter. She went back to school, earning a degree in communications. Then in the 1990s, she took the helm of the family's business, the LBJ Holding Company, based in Austin, Texas. She proved to be a brilliant and decisive businesswoman. For over 3 decades, she has served as the chairman of the board, managing the family's extensive and valuable assets, including their portfolio of radio stations and real estate holdings. She successfully grew the fortune that her mother, Lynda Bird, had started with a small, struggling radio station decades before. Her life has also been marked by a serious and terrifying health battle. In 2010, she was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare autoimmune disorder that attacks the nervous system and can cause paralysis. She faced the illness with courage and a public determination, eventually making a full recovery and becoming an advocate for others with the condition. Today, Luci Baines Johnson is a powerful and respected businesswoman and philanthropist in Texas. She is a sharp, witty, and candid keeper of her family's legacy, actively serving on the board of the LBJ Foundation and speaking with raw honesty about her father's monumental achievements and his tragic human flaws. Her story is one of a vivacious young girl who grew into a formidable matriarch in her own right. A true daughter of both the tough-minded businesswoman Lynda Bird and the larger-than-life political force Lyndon B. Johnson. Together, the lives of Lynda Bird Johnson Robb and Luci Baines Johnson offer a unique and fascinating window into the pressures and privileges of a presidential dynasty. A political advocate and a business powerhouse. Each in her own way has carried the complex and monumental legacy of the Johnson White House into the 21st century with intelligence, grace, and an undeniable strength. This theme of a great American political family forever defined by a presidential assassination and its aftermath is one we have explored before on this channel. In a previous video, we examined the brilliant and tragic life of John F. Kennedy, the man whose Camelot era was cut short, thrusting Lyndon Johnson into the presidency. We explored his presidency and the profound impact his assassination had on the nation and his own children. You can watch that essential story by clicking the link right here. And his children had to navigate their own tragic and complex legacy in the aftermath of that terrible day in Dallas. We are currently developing a deep dive, John F. Kennedy's 3 children, the Untold Story. To explore that incredible chapter of American history, be sure to subscribe and have hit that notification bell.